Good evening and welcome to the Planning Board meeting of June the 10th, a virtual meeting. I'd like to make a motion to open the meeting. Do I have a second for June the 10th at 7:02 p.m.?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, and let me turn on my Jim,
Aye.
Steph,
Aye.
Brett. No, you're muted, Brett. Bottom left somewhere. Rob?
Aye.
Brett, give a thumbs up right now if you can do that.
Okay, thumbs up. There we
Okay.
go.
Found it, came back. Sorry, it was disappeared.
Okay. So we have that. Thank you for that. So I'm going to read
Arrived for you or for someone else?
Yeah. Oh, is that,
Yeah.
I don't know who that was, but
You use
Someone-
Sherbron Sentinel.
Can you mute if you're not speaking, please? Thank you. Okay, all set.
Okay. So I'm going to read the agenda for tonight's meeting. First order of business is minutes of May the 20th. Second is taking any reports, town planner reports. We have a hearing, an A&R on 65 Farm Road at 7:15. We have continued discussions on priorities and future topics to include stormwater, groundwater protection, signed bylaw, battery energy storage systems, BESS, and solar. Then we have another item that is rules, regs, and administrative items. And then we have other business, which includes meetings and dates, and then reports on other meetings with other boards and entities, and the town planner report. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda as read?
So move.
And second?
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded. Jim Garino,
Aye.
Steph Harrison,
Aye.
Brett,
Aye.
Rob Wolf.
Aye.
All right, so it's been approved by all.
And your vote, Frank?
Oh, sorry. Yes, and Frank Hook also an aye. Yes. Well, thank you for that, Steph. Okay, so the first item, and I don't see it here. Are there any items not anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting?
No, but I just have something. Heidi, if you're organizing the meeting, my computer just informed me it's going to force a reboot at like 7:13 or so. So if you can just keep an eye, and if I drop off for a couple minutes and then request to come in again, make sure you get me in.
thanks for the heads up.
You can cancel out of that usually.
I don't know how to do that.
That happened to me at one of our Zoom meetings and I was running the Zoom.
Okay. So with that, the first item is the minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Do we is there any further discussion? Do we need to post them on screen?
I had no comments.
No comments, no comments, no comments. Okay, so there's no comments, so let's so I make a motion that we accept the minutes without any amendments. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Stephanie,
Aye.
Brett?
Aye.
Rob Wolf?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
And I, Frank Hookham, and I as well. Okay, so that's the minutes. Thank you for that. Seeing that it's 7:06, not quite 7:15 yet. Are there any items that we think we can talk about prior to the hearing?
Yeah, I was wondering if Brett could introduce herself. It's her first meeting and give a little history. And I also see Anne Marie is on the meeting. If maybe she could give some background as well from what she might be interested in our associate position.
Sure, yeah. So Brett Piercy, I've lived in Sherbron since 2012. We came out here because it's the closest place to Boston that has good schools and you can have horses in your yard. And now I do. So I work in urban planning. I work on the economic side. So I do a lot of work figuring out, or like helping our clients figure out what makes them more competitive for economic development and things, but or also weighing different sort of different infrastructure options that they could pursue. And I enjoyed serving on the housing board with Addie May, and when she mentioned that this position was coming up, I'm really interested in helping the town out on the planning board. So
Thank you.
Well, welcome. And thank you very much.
Anne Marie, do you want to introduce yourself or anything about your background? Oh, we can't hear you. No, it's still not hearing you. It's saying you're unmuted, but we don't seem to hear the mic. No luck. That's all right. We'll try another time. Anne Marie has a planning as well in some of the economics. She's worked with mass development and is a new resident into Sherbron, and I am hoping she may be interested in joining as our associate member.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us this evening. Okay.
And I was going to say, Rob, did you recently attended the Metro West Regional Collaboration meeting 2 weeks ago? Do you have any update on the one in Wellesley that you attended?
Boy, my main impression from that is that their meeting rooms in the town hall are unbelievable. It's like a cathedral in there if you've never been in there.
I've been dying to go in there.
It is quite a place. They've done an amazing restoration of this building. Yeah, it's definitely worth a visit.
I can only imagine.
No, I don't recall anything urgent really. Some of the leadership is changing over. The chair is retiring, and the vice chair or whatever is taking over in the interim, and may or may not end up as the new chair. They basically did some talking about the loss of a certain amount of federal grant money and their attempts on how to make it up. But there were really no specifics about how that would affect towns around here at this point. So I don't really have much to report from it.
Okay. We have a couple more minutes. I'll give some of the town planner report, Frank, if you'd like.
That would be great, please.
Okay. So I have gone to the Town Forest Committee meeting, and there is they're wrapping up the logging project that was on Hunting Lane in that area, the Brush Hill neighborhood, and there's still a few logs left. Hopefully they'll be cleaned up. They're going to start hydroseeding and bringing some of those trails back and renovating that area, restoring it rather. They have talked about the new bike trails that have gone into the town forest for the mountain bikes, and they came up with a compromise proposal for what trails would be allowed in that area. So it is expanded from what it had been. It does not have any features, and that's something that they said the town forest is going to have to come up with a management procedure and process of how they look at what they would like the town forest to be. And they've started some invasive species management up on the Red Pines area. And I think not the Barber Reservation, but the Red Pines area in the center of town, because there's been a lot of invasives coming in and they're trying to get that controlled. And the only way they felt was to actually hire someone to start getting on this. Other project gone to recently was the North Sherbron Water and Sewer Committee. That has a new interim committee that has started. They are waiting to see when the DEP would issue regulations and permits for the projects. Right now, Toll Brothers has applied for DEP. There will be some site testing on there for water, because we're now getting water from Framingham and sewer from Natick. It's considered an interbasin water transfer. Water from Quabbin that's actually headed out towards the Boston Harbor area, where before, when we were going to try and have water and sewer from Framingham, we were within the same basin. So now when it's an interbasin, it actually goes to a whole nother level of review and will take a little longer to get some of the clearances.
Heidi, who's on that committee?
It's the two select board members are Steve Sy and Marion, Frank Jenkins, Meredith Wizolowski, and I'm blanking on I don't know the name of the other person who's on it, but there was another member. And then there were several associate members as well.
It's Andrea Stiller, Heidi.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob. Andrea Stiller, okay. And I'm trying to think, that's probably all the news right now on the town planner side of meetings. So I think we are up to pretty close to our point.
Okay, in that case, it is 7:15 p.m. We have an A&R for 65 Farm Road. I make a motion to open the hearing for 65 Farm Road A&R. Do I have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Steph?
Aye.
Brett?
Aye.
Rob?
He
Rob
may have
probably
fallen off.
dropped off.
Yeah.
Jim?
Aye.
And I, Frank Hookham, and I as well. And that is a quorum, so we are good with that.
Great. And the applicant is here, so I'm going to ask him to say a few words on what the A&R is, but he did submit the application. Everything is checked out, all the forms were received. I have reviewed it and it is set for the hearing tonight. So Bob, would you be willing to say a couple of words on what this A&R entails?
Sure, absolutely. So as I think pretty much everyone on the Zoom tonight will recall, this property was the subject of a 40B application, which was denied and which is currently in litigation. As part of the attempts by both myself and the town to resolve that litigation, I've made several proposals about building by right single-family homes. Two of those homes, lot 3 and lot 4 in this plan, have been approved by the Sherbron Board of Health, and they'll need a review of these property line changes, but the location of the houses and septics and wells and such have not changed. So I believe the review of the property line changes reflected in this plan will be pretty perfunctory. As you can see in the plan, there are 3 what I'll call Sherbron buildable lots. Those would be lot 3, lot 4, and lot 5. All 3 of those have the required frontage and the required area, which are the 2 items that are to be reviewed by the planning board in terms of making the endorsement tonight. As a practical matter, obviously, when you design lots, you not only want them to meet the area and the and the frontage that is required by the in order to get the endorsement of the planning board for a lot for these lots, you also want to be able to actually build on them. So I've reviewed them in detail with the zoning enforcement officer, Chris Canny, and he has expressed his satisfaction with those 3 lots. We are leaving a piece of remaining land of 9.53 acres. And there were some very, very minor adjustments that were made to the existing Lot 1C, which is where the house at 55 Farm Road is located. It was less than 2,000 square feet that were added to the Lot 1C, which has the house on it. And those lines were changed ever so slightly, but it was not a major change. I think it was effectively a couple thousand feet in and a couple thousand feet out, or it actually must have been a little more in because it resulted in a ever so slightly larger lot. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Great. Steph, do you have the prior plan to
I
share?
do. So the best way to see that is if I go to full screen, which makes it hard to see the individual lots, but it gives you a chance to see the back and forth. So here's the existing plan. You can see the pond and the existing lot 1B and lot 2B are right here. And I'm going to go back and forth a little bit. You can just compare, just going back and forth. So you can see the differences.
Yes, only that back property line on 1C is the one that changes a little bit
Yes,
where the
this,
house is.
yeah,
and then-
this line right here is the one that
Right.
changes.
Right. And then the other lines are drawn in to fit. And the one lot, the remaining land lot does not have the frontage for a buildable lot. So that one we
That's
will.
this frontage right here, right?
Correct. So
this
for now,
whole-
we will annotate on it, which we've seen, the plan was written before, not a buildable lot per zoning.
And
Sounds
actually,
good.
there is a note from the surveyor on the left-hand side.
Yes.
That statement.
Yep.
I did
But-
receive an email from an abutter that should be put into the record, so I would like to read that. And
Sure. I didn't see it, but please do.
okay, it is from Brian Moore. Says, good afternoon. Mary and I saw that this was on the docket and wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page about the access to the proposed Lot 5 would occur and make sure that the discussion with council, if necessary, were taken prior to any endorsement. Because permitting has been undertaken for lots 3 and 4 already, and some progress has already been made with town permits for only a single driveway to serve 2 houses on those lots. We want to make sure that the board members understood that those permits were limited to use of only lots 3 and 4 as of now. That would mean access to lot 5 would therefore have to be directly through the wetland/resource area in the area prone to repeated flooding. We have attached a plan depicting the extent of flooded documented in previous meetings with other town boards. You may have seen the previous drone footage from last year showing the same. It is available on the town's Farm Road 40B project website. Since we are directly down gradient of all these homes and now appear to have any significant storm contingencies, we have serious concerns about flooding of Farm Road and our property. We have invested a lot of time and energy into protecting the wetland, our well, and our parcel, and just want to make sure that our concerns are being heard. Thank you. And then he shows a map, which I'll show in a moment. And then he has a follow-up email that says, I also forgot to mention that it appears that several items that may be absent from the A&R plan. We believe there are several stone walls from the other plans that have not been depicted. There's at least one structure in the field that is not depicted. The existing cart path does not appear on the A&R plan. Fences, the ones that have not fallen down or rotted into the ground, also appear to be absent. I thought a few of these were supposed to be depicted on the A&R plan. Just making sure. Thanks again, Brian Moore. And let's see if I open this up. And Steph, if I can share, I'll show what he sent out with that.
Absolutely.
So can you all see that, or do I need to move it a little bit?
Can it go up a little bit?
Can you make that window a little bigger?
Yeah, okay.
Bigger as in,
Drag the window, make it.
which way? This way? Or this way? So you see more of it, or that I expanded?
The corner of the window itself. Looks like it's. That's right. I can't see it, but that's fine.
So what is shown here, from what I understand, you can see the pond in the circle, right? And then you can see the dashed line that is labeled as wetland line. And then you can see the blue line, which is this, I believe what he's saying is an area of flooding. Frank, we lost your visual.
Share.
Yeah, I'm looking for it. I can't find myself. Let me stop sharing and let me share it again. Bear with me. There. Can you see it now? Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
And Heidi, if you could just please clarify for an A&R. I know for a fact that we're not approving any project that utilizes this driveway. That's not part of this process, but or any construction over the wetland. But my question is the function of the A&R taken into account when we do an endorsement, or is that not regarded?
We are looking at street frontage, access and acreage. And access here, I'd run this by conservation on lot 5, and there is potential access according to conservation. There also can be future other options that can be done, such as common driveways, which are not before us. So the only lot that does not meet our zoning is the remaining land one. You know, we don't look at permits or what's building. We're not giving out permits, or we're not saying that this can be built. We are just saying it meets our zoning code. Bylaw, rather.
If you'd like, I could fill in a little more detail, Heidi, or Frank, as chair, that I failed to mention about the driveway. I just forgot. I'd be happy to give you just a touch more information on that if it'd be helpful.
Please do so, yes.
Yeah. So as I think most people on the call know, I was, or rather, I permitted a driveway, a common driveway that will serve ultimately, currently, since only 3 and 4 are lot 3 and lot 4 permitted, it's currently only going to serve those two, and I'm not required to have a common driveway permit. If and when the house on lot 5 is built, that common driveway, I'll have to come back to you folks in order to get a common driveway permit to service 3 homes. That would be, I think, pretty perfunctory in the town of Sherbron, in that it's something that has happened a lot. I've lived on a common driveway that served 5 homes, and I know there are many, many others in town. So it's not a regulatory reach to see that permit being issued by you all. The driveway itself, you all will remember because you approved the scenic road hearing not that long ago where the curb cut is, and you were shown where the driveway was. It's not shown on the A&R plan because it's proposed, and it didn't seem appropriate to the surveyor to put that on this A&R plan. If it were built, it would be shown. And then, as Heidi said, with regard to access, the theoretical access to Lot 5 would be in upland, but just barely. It would be just outside of the wetland line. But wetland, frankly, having access across wetlands is allowable. It needs to be permitted through the Conservation Commission. And in fact, I'm not picking on him because he's a nice guy, but the chair of our ZBA, in fact, has frontage and a driveway that was permitted. It's called a wetland crossing, was permitted by the Sherbron ZBA to create his driveway and his frontage. So I would argue that there certainly is precedent. It certainly is legal, and there's plenty of precedent in the town of Sherbron for that type of access. In this case, I don't intend to seek a permit to do it, but that access is available to me should I choose to seek a permit. So I hope that kind of clarifies the situation. Oh, and the other, actually, an important wetland crossing. I think you all are familiar with the Meadowbrook Commons proposed project. It was approved the preliminary development plan was approved, and you'll have that special permit before you probably in the not too distant future. And their driveway coming into that project will also be a full wetland crossing, which will need to be permitted by the Sherbron Conservation Commission. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions from anybody on the board? Hearing none, are there any questions or comments from anybody else in the audience or attending this meeting? Hearing none, I make a motion to endorse the A&R as presented. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Frank, I have some just additional discussion to add before we vote, please.
Okay.
Yeah, just this is unrelated. It wasn't a question, so I didn't speak up earlier, but I just wanted to disclose that I work for a company called Stantec, and Stantec is contracted through the town to do some work related to reviewing lot lines on this particular development. I have no involvement in that work at all, and I don't think that there's any conflict of interest in terms of an A&R, the A&R proposal that's before us. I invite Heidi to weigh in if she feels any differently, but I don't envision a conflict of interest. I just wanted to be fully transparent about my employment.
Steph,
No, I think
could I just clarify Stantec's role? It's great that you mentioned this. I didn't know that. I would just clarify that Stantec is not responsible for reviewing the property lines relative to zoning or the A&R or anything like that. They're reviewing the new property lines to make sure that my setbacks to my wells and septic things and such. So it's not a it's a Board of Health review that they're doing. And by the way, they Stantec does really, really good work. So thank you.
That's my understanding as well, and I have no involvement on the project. So I'm sorry, that was the only discussion I wanted to bring up before the vote.
And Brian Moore has a hand raised.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Brian. We could hear you.
Thank you very much. There was just, I was having I couldn't find where to raise the hand on the new interface on the Zoom, but, we saw on the town webpage, it said specifically that you were supposed to include things like stone walls and structures on the A&R plans, and that was the reason for the second email, which was just simply to make sure. I mean, we're thrilled that this is moving in the direction of a 40A as opposed to a 40B, but we just want to make sure it's being done appropriately along that path. And we just didn't see like the structure that's in the field or the stone walls that are out there at various places within the property as being on those plans. I thought those were specifically called out on the town's instructions for doing an A&R plan, but I might be wrong, and that's just why I sent that second email. But thank you for hearing my question, even though I was late with the hand.
It's okay. Just a comment for Brian. The stone wall in the front is in the plan. It's just very hard to see that. I can see it on here. And in 22, the same plan had been before the planning board. So the planning board has made a history of accepting A&Rs. Maybe
I think if you look at the plans that were under the lot 4 and 5 submittals, and I don't know if those are on the 40B webpage for the town, but they're definitely in town records. You'll find there are other stone walls that just aren't on the plans. And
yeah, I can
That's
only comment on what's before us, unfortunately, and looking at what the history of what the planning board had approved before. So I'll turn that over to Frank and the board to just make a decision if they feel that.
Heidi, I think what I'd point out here is that I believe all of the stone walls along the frontage and along the property line with the moors are in fact shown on this plan. The structure Brian refers to is coming down. It's going to be torn down very, very soon. And so I'm not sure it'd be helpful or appropriate to put it on the plan.
Was that a stone wall, Bob, that's actually in the property, or is it along the street?
It's a dark, it looks like a dark, thick line, but you can see it under the property line.
Yeah, the stone wall along the frontage and along the property line with the moors is all shown. It's the interior stone walls I assume that Brian is referring to, and I'm not aware that those are required in an A&R plan.
You can see the stone walls along the frontage, the little chain looking.
In the property
Symbol.
line. I'm sure if you
along
had a
the property.
full-size sheet, you could see it clearly, but on the reduced image, it's a little blurry.
Bob, does that meet your resolve your question? Not Bob, sorry, Brian.
yeah, I'm sorry. It just said on the webpage you should have your stone walls on there. There are a bunch of interior stone walls that aren't depicted. It was just a compliance issue. It's up for you to determine if that's, in line with your requirements or not. It's not my determination.
Heidi, is it true that our purview over stone walls is as it relates to the Scenic Road Act, which would be stone walls that are in the public right of way? Or do we have purview over stone
we do have
walls?
hearings on this, just the stone walls on the scenic road. I don't know that it's ever been required for all the stone walls on a property on the interior to have been marked. I mean, clearly the one prior one, if you show the one before, that was endorsed in 2022 by the planning board, also only had exterior walls on it. So I'm if it was not a requirement, it may be that Board of Health and Conservation have different set plans. I know it says that, but the A&R, again, we're just looking at lot lines. And the scenic road is drawn on here. And the lot line is, but history doesn't seem to dictate that all the interior stone walls need to be marked.
And in fact, one of the issues with doing that is the interior stone walls can be moved or dismantled. And in fact, there was an interior stone wall across the front of where the house at 53 Farm Road now sits. And if you put a lot of those interior stone walls or other things that are, planned to be taken down, then they end up living on an A&R and they're not there on the ground. And so I mean, I think the fact that history is that the precedent in the history is you've only required stone walls on the frontage, or in this case, it's along a property line as well. I think would tell us that it would be appropriate to go forward with this plan.
Is there any other discussion from anybody on the board? Any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts?
Yeah, I think since there's precedent on this site, I think we don't change the rules since then.
Okay, anybody else in the that is on the Zoom call? So the motion has been made and seconded. We're in the discussion phase. So I am ready to call for the vote. I'm sorry, did I get a second on my motion?
You did.
Jim,
Okay.
second.
Okay, perfect. So then at this point, I would like to take a roll call vote. Jim Guarino,
Aye.
Steph Harrison,
Aye.
Brett Piercy,
Aye.
Rob Wolf,
Aye.
and I, Frank Hookham, and I as well. Okay, thank you. So the next part of this is would the planning board prefer to have either Frank, myself, or Steph be the ones to sign for the planning board?
Or do people want to come in? It's up to.
Any thoughts from anybody?
Jim can sign tonight since he's here in person. But
Do you feel comfortable signing for the planning board, Jim?
It's a,
I've seen mainly the chair sign on behalf of the planning board. So
I can come in tomorrow. All right, Steph, how was your day look?
I could come in probably before Heidi is there or after hours. We have a bunch
I
of
can
in-person
leave,
meetings
yeah,
tomorrow.
I can leave these up here on the counter. Because I'm actually not in tomorrow.
Okay. So Frank, if you can make it in business hours, that might be a little more reliable. But
Sure,
I
yeah, I
think we
could probably make it around between 3 and 4 o'clock anyway.
so we just need a motion. I would move to have Frank sign on behalf of the planning board. And just would need a second and a vote on that.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, Jim,
aye.
Brett,
Aye.
Rob,
Aye.
Steph,
Aye.
and I, Frank Hookham, and I as well. Okay.
We need to meet in person more.
Yeah.
Maybe the next one.
Okay, so at this point, we should close the hearing for the A&R on 65 Farm Road. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, Jim Guarino,
Aye.
Steph Harrison,
Aye.
Brett Piercy,
Aye.
Rob Wolf. He says aye, and I, Frank Hookham, and I as well. So thank you very much, everybody. The hearing is now closed.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Okay, current planning board business, a continuation discussion on the priorities and future topics. Heidi, are you up to talking about the stormwater, groundwater protection, or did you finish that already?
Yes, so I met with Chris Caney, the building inspector, and Joyce Hastings, our conservation agent, just to see, because they're actually driving the stormwater. They would like some more regulations. Currently, the stormwater is in our general bylaws. It's not one of the zoning bylaws. And it only seems to cover subdivisions for the most part. And actually not even subdivisions, but also anything going into the municipal stormwater and sewer system. So that's why they call it the MS4 that you've heard the town come to plan. And that's it's under chapter 200 in our general bylaws. And they have a section, the purpose of it is to regulate discharges to municipal separate stormwater sewer, to protect the town of Sherbron's water bodies and groundwater, and to safeguard the public health, safety, and welfare and the environment. Increased and contaminated stormwater runoff associated with construction sites, developed land uses, and the accompanying increase. It goes on to discuss it. The concern that one of the things we had was, by saying is to regulate the MS4, that's very limiting, and it's looking for the town to consider any type of land disturbance that Joyce was saying. Other towns actually have land disturbance permits. So the zoning board has set up land disturbance permits that are minor and major, and they usually have a site plan review, especially for a major one. And major could be something over an acre, and it's any type of construction, because they're really trying to treat and make sure all the water is treated. And it can be something very similar, such as just a plantings to have, make sure the grasses run off a certain way, or swales. But our general bylaws really are limiting that, unless it's going into our MS4, which are only a few limited zones, not much of this applies. So Joyce and Chris, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Can I just clarify, when you say MS4, that might be a term that a lot of people aren't familiar with. You're talking about the drainage pipe system that pipes stormwater directly to water bodies, for which the town is permitted through the state to send stormwater directly into water bodies. But there's a lot of other ways that stormwater gets into water bodies. Is that a correct?
Thank you. Yes. Okay. Yes. And Steph will be working with us on this too, to help out. So that was a couple of issues that came up, is that we really don't have anything that addresses land disturbance on a lot of projects and smaller things that would actually have an impact into some other water bodies. And also cumulative projects should be looked at, just like how we had the anti-segmentation and the affordable housing. Also to look at, if someone's building one house, then the next house, there is actually a cumulative effect of groundwater that happens, or groundwater disturbance. And Joyce said that actually in Dover, every building application is looked for stormwater or land disturbance, and erosion control as well, which we don't do right now. So a couple of things came up is, what are we trying to accomplish with our stormwater? Is there something we do want to try and accomplish? What should be the thresholds that we use? And how do we protect the homeowners in this process to not make it something very onerous, but to make it good for the town and the homeowner as well? So that's going to be our focus, and we are going to try to brainstorm and come up with some more concrete examples to present in July. And our hope is that, we work on this with you and have the planning board fine tune more, that we have something for next town meeting. And Steph has got a lot from the Groundwater Protection Committee, I think, that can weigh in and add and expand on it. Anything you have, Steph, so far? Thoughts?
No, this is really helpful, because I saw it pop up on the priority list and I said, oh, I'm probably qualified to weigh in on that topic, but I wasn't sure what was the driver and what were the desires of, like, the specifics to add. So this was a really helpful background. So yeah, that's great. It's a good starting point.
Yeah. So that's just an introduction, and more to follow.
How does other than the obvious, is there another specific interplay with groundwater that you're looking for? That has been mentioned from the proponents of this topic?
I think it's going to be help with coming up with realistic expectations, maybe for homeowners, you know, and coming up, what are the thresholds that we're looking to achieve? And I think the Groundwater Protection Committee probably already has some ideas of what they'd like to achieve in the town.
The reason I'm asking is because when the Groundwater Protection Committee started, there was talk of a groundwater bylaw, groundwater protection bylaw, in terms of, you know, if there was opportunities to be restrictive about protecting groundwater, right? Like the only places where we have groundwater overlay districts is where there's some Sherbron land that is near, this is my like understanding from several years ago, that is near the Holliston public well system or something like that. So we are restricted in terms of what we can do on the surface and how that impacts groundwater from the perspective of a public water supply. And I think there was some desire to understand, like, I don't think that I ever fully really appreciated like what is the groundwater protection avenues that are being sought by those proponents in town who want a groundwater protection bylaw. So
Okay.
if there's any insight into that. I know there was some talk about it at the Farm Pond presentation. So I can, you know, that would be one place to start, would be going back to that consultant, but I think that was more on subdivisions. Anyway, just if anyone has thoughts about how, like, I think I better understand now what is being sought with a stormwater bylaw, but the groundwater protection side of things, I'll talk to the Groundwater Protection Committee tomorrow because we have a meeting tomorrow.
Great.
And just see if there's some common ground here for a bylaw.
Yeah, I liked the term when they were using land disturbance, that maybe it's a land disturbance bylaw, and then that it regulates stormwater and groundwater protection. You know, it might fit under that.
Thanks.
You know, especially things like paved parking lot areas. You know, that changes in the surface of any type of construction. So it's a start.
Thanks.
And that's all I have on that topic, Frank.
Just out of curiosity, should this be a bigger topic than this? Because we're part of the Charles River Watershed Authority, and we have our permitted issues with phosphates and nitrates and so on. And I know that you know, the DPW is doing a lot of work with looking at water flows and so on. Does that have any impact or bearing on this, or is that something that's totally different? I just don't know. I just know there's a water issue, and there's a big concern about phosphates in certainly the Charles River, if not you know, other bodies of water in and around Metro West.
I think that would be a good question for Sean. And I mean, that's part of the MS4 permitting process, right? Is the TMDL, the total maximum daily load for phosphorus through municipal discharges, stormwater discharges. So it might be worth a conversation with Addie May and Sean about whether there's any overlap there.
Well, and we do have that stormwater management, you know, it's like 5 or 6 pages that print out, that is in our general bylaw, that it deals specifically with the stormwater management.
Right.
So it's kind of already in place for some of that.
You're
We just
right.
don't
That-
have it addressing anything else. So this was kind of driven from another group.
Yeah, that's a good point. That is the purpose of the existing bylaw.
Right.
Sorry, I didn't mean to keep sharing. It's nice to see. Okay.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this topic from anybody on the board?
I'm just wondering, I assume that like, I'm looking at the section that talks about permitted non-stormwater discharges and things like foundation drains and footing drains. I guess I'm assuming that like outdoor impervious surfaces that have a drain, that would be considered stormwater, presumably, I guess, right?
Yes.
And just all the water falling on a roof and collected by gutters, that's stormwater too?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a normal kind of thing we're used to dealing with in a development plan.
Right.
Okay.
But what if we don't have a development plan? You know, what if it's just a single family house that still has an impact?
Right.
Right now, there's nothing to regulate it.
Right, except the way this is listed, it's like the non-stormwater discharges would still be prohibited anywhere, right? The way it's
This,
currently written?
no, it doesn't say that. Other
No?
towns have that pretty explicitly that, you know, you can't, like, everything has to stay on your property, things should go, but I couldn't find anything, and Joyce was looking too. This was geared towards what was going into the municipal separate stormwater sewage, like had they not limited it to that words, I think it would have been better. Because that's all the purposes to regulate just that. It's not looking at any other discharges that go into something else.
So if you have non-permeable paving, you're all right.
Yeah,
Okay,
so that's one of the things we want to look at, and that's what Joyce was pointing out, you know, that this is very limiting.
Or permeable paving, I meant.
Yeah, so some work to be done researching and looking at, and hopefully next meeting we'll have a little more updates and come up with some of the thresholds. And Steph, I'd be very curious to hear how the meeting goes tomorrow with groundwater. Should we move on, Frank, to the next topic?
Yes, if there are no other questions, let us move on. And are there any other questions? Any comments? Concerns? Okay. Thank you, Heidi. So the next topic is the sign bylaw.
Yes,
Did you want to introduce that to that topic again to us? What?
sure. So we've had several resident complaints coming in about signs, and actually I may turn to someone in the audience to explain a little more so you can hear what some of the concerns have been. And last year we tried to come up with something, and it just seemed not to be the right fit. We had very little time. By the time we kind of got the directive to look into it, we only had a few weeks to try and come up with something, and I don't think what we were coming up with really was helping to answer the questions because of the concern about protected speech. Other towns do have time, place, and manner, and it's something they say you can put something up, but there's a time, 30 days or whatever, for any type of signs to be up. That seems to work in other towns. I kind of feel we need some more time to research this. But I'm hearing complaints from residents about the amount of signs, types of signs, and just different expressions that are the term used was littering the town. And Sarah, I'm going to put you on the spot here, sorry, but if you would introduce yourself and if you're willing to share some of your comments, I think that would be appreciated.
Sarah Raggy, and I have a little bit of a bugaboo about some of the signs that are, I didn't say I litter, but they are in violation of our current bylaws. Now, we do have exempt signs, and I think that's, in my recall, that's what the planning board was trying to address last season before town meeting, and that's a whole different topic. And I do think that needs the attention of the planning board. to set some parameters of what exempt signs can do, time limits, size, materials, whatever it is. But my concern is sort of what I call a aesthetic erosion of the town in terms of driving by and seeing a pop-up neon sign here, pop-up neon sign there, and thinking, oh darn, and then and you think, oh, you're just gonna ignore it, but then there's another one and another one. And so I did look at the signage bylaw and found out that actually we have we do not allow internally lit signs, whether it's neon or whatever the new technology is that would be internally lit. And I have been pursuing since March to request, and I did take a hiatus because I thought the town meeting had enough on its plate. So while I made my first effort in March, I shut down until May after town meeting. But basically these neon signs are still up. And now, and I actually just sent an email today to Chris Caney, who is the enforcer of this bylaw, unfortunately, to say, okay, so these people are not conforming to our bylaw. Can we at least get revenue from them? Or I'm not sure where to go next, but I find the whole aesthetic of it's almost, and these are my words, and I'm only saying them tonight, sign pollution. There's just so much coming at us. You're coming into town, you have a blinking speed sign, you have, there's just so much signage. And I find it really an aesthetic erosion of driving through Sherbron and thinking it's a rural community where you're going to see trees and pleasant greenscape. So I'll end it there. That is I won't deny that I am a flag waving sign destroyer or wanting to be.
Well, you aren't the only one. So the other complaints that have come up through to Jeremy have been the sandwich boards that have been put on the sidewalks.
Mm-hmm.
And looking into it, so that doesn't come through the planning board, that actually goes through the ZBA when they were given their permits. And some businesses actually were given the ability to have a sandwich board, others haven't. But people now have followed the say, once one starts, you're seeing a lot of them. So something else that's going to be a ZBA issue of how they're going to handle whether sandwich boards are allowed.
Excuse the interruption, Heidi, but I think if they do have, my understanding, and I could be mistaken for sure, is that if they have sandwich boards, they need to be taken out at the close of business hours. They're not to be up 24/7.
Okay. So luckily that's not ours. It's just, it's another sign complaint we're hearing. And then the last one I got a complaint about was the wrapped trees in town with the rainbow wrapped trees that I had to go out to see how close it was off the street. And it was not in the public right of way. So it was private property and that is allowed. So that, but there does seem to be a growing interest of people having some more controls on signs. So
am I understanding Sarah's comments to be more about enforcement? Because I have the bylaw up. I can open it just so people have a little bit of context. And it does, sorry, I know that's like not easy to watch it when it's scrolling, but I'm just trying to find, okay. So for example, can you guys see this illumination? It does say, a fixed white light from an external source. So internally illuminated is not permitted, right? And it also says shall not incorporate neon elements. I don't know the sign you're speaking about, Sarah, but all of this is in the bylaws. And I'm understanding that maybe you have a concern about enforcement.
I do. I do. I have been in communication with Chris Caney. I didn't know I'd be called on tonight, or I could.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. But I just would, if I knew I was called on, I would pull out the dates of my communications with him because I've been doing this for quite a while. And he did respond to me maybe a month ago, saying he actually visited each business and told them that they were in infraction of the zoning bylaw to have an internally lit sign. And I will say Ocean Dreams took down theirs right away. I thought, oh, maybe it's just out. But anyway, that sign went black. And then the liquor store, which has a pretty prominent open sign in rainbow colors, did unplug the one that had the Sam Adams sign, but it's still to this day. Today I sent another email, has the open sign. Frosty's has 2 open signs. And then the arts provision shop, whatever you want to call it, next to the gas station, has 3 internally lit signs, and they have had those up for probably a month. And in my so my communication today said basically, okay, these people, if you've paid them a visit and they haven't complied, why isn't the town getting revenue from this? I mean, at some point there needs to be enforcement.
I think that's true. And I think the flip side we're hearing from where some of the, I think is that we make it very difficult for businesses to stay in business and to be here, that an open sign may be not unreasonable, and that maybe this has to be looked at to say, what is there some way to work with a business? Like, what technology has changed so much since these bylaws were written? What types of
my response to that, excuse the interruption, but my response to that would be simply to say, I would like to pull Freeport, Maine's sign bylaw, because they have a lot of businesses that do have a huge success rate, and they don't have any neon signs. So, and even Dunkin' Donuts, and our Dunkin' Donuts does not have illuminated signs, but the Dunkin' Donuts in Dover is a beautifully carved wooden sign. I don't think signage has to be unattractive. I just think it doesn't have to be neon and flashing, and none of these are flashing. So I want to be upfront about that. But it does warrant a study about what we want for signage in town.
Actually, one of CNL's can flash.
Oh, great.
I know, because I did see one time it was open with going around the things, but then they turned that part off. So maybe after Chris's visit, they didn't do the flashing, but because after yours, I went out at night to drive around too, to see which ones were lit.
You have to turn off the slow down signs.
Yeah. So anyway, to the planning board, this is what you're going to be hearing. And this is some of the other side is what I'm hearing about the business side. So I think it's going to be a decision too. If we have zoning bylaws, they should be enforced. And I think it's something that you'll have to see, are these zoning bylaws still what you'd like to keep?
So it's a review of the current bylaws, as well as looking at that one section that we started to tackle back at the end of last year.
Exempt signs, yeah, but this is different. This is commercial signs, right? So it is very different from exempt signs. I can appreciate that.
I do think the exempt signs are much in need of revamping and studying. Just personally, I think that.
So I'm looking at the priorities list and who signed up for what at the last meeting, and poor Heidi's name is all by itself on this sign line for the bylaw. So now I have a better appreciation. I think it's interesting because we didn't have a lot of this background when we were just looking at a list of topics. And this is, it's helpful to have this context of what the discussion is about.
And I would be very comfortable sending you a timeline of my communication with the town and about how I've tried to pursue having the neon signs turned off, if that's helpful.
Yes, no, I mean, I would like to get some coworkers here to so we can try and really look at some other towns. Like, we have time right now to look at some other towns' bylaws, and I think we're going to have to possibly revamp other sections than the exempt section and the sign bylaws. What my takeaway is from what I'm seeing.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's a two-issue thing that Steph was starting to bring up earlier. There's a compliance aspect, and then there's also the bylaw aspect, and whether
Yeah.
these bylaws need to be modified or updated and changed. So I think we need to look at both, and just we've already addressed the issue that we should be looking at the signs bylaw, but we're really only looking at it from that exempt one. This might open that up to even more than that.
Yeah.
And just looking at our entire signs bylaw and comparing it to some of the other towns and seeing, what we have and what we would like to see in a bylaw for our town, if it should change. And then simultaneous to that is to see if we can help out with making sure that our businesses are doing what they should be doing and complying and figuring out that issue.
Yeah.
Sarah?
The ZBA chair has asked us to look at our whole bylaw and see if we can simplify it.
May I just jump in? All I'm seeing is a screen and I don't see the participants, but if I could just jump in and say, in the meantime, while this bylaw is being re-examined, if we could enforce the bylaws that we currently have on the books.
I think that's what I just mentioned, that would happen as a simultaneous thing, is that while we're looking at the bylaws, also make sure that we're looking into the compliance of the bylaw in our business district.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that businesses were not thinking, oh, they're thinking about it, so we don't really have to comply with the current zoning laws. So I appreciate your comments. Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, we have the bylaws on record, and that's what they need to follow. And yes, we should have compliance on that. So we'll look into that, as well as look at the bylaws in general to see if they should be changed. But right now we have what we have. It's like having a speed limit sign in town that says 35 miles an hour. We're contemplating bringing it down to 25. As we're doing that, we're still at driving 35 until we put the sign up that says we're on 25.
Thank you.
Any other discussions on this topic? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to the next topic, which is battery energy storage systems, BESS for short. I'll start with that discussion, and let me see what the best way is for me to do this. Bear with me. That's not what I want.
But Frank, before we go there, can I just flash up the priorities and just see if there's anyone who's interested in adding their name next to Heidi's for signs?
I can put mine there. I'm not on anything, so I'm glad to jump on that one.
Thank you.
Great. Never mind then. Okay, go ahead, Frank, sorry.
Okay. So let me share my screen real quick. And it's just to point out that the current situation, if everybody could see, are large scale ground mount solar voltaics cell zoning under 240-5.10. That is where our current battery energy storage system bylaw resides. And if you look under G, what we currently have is here compliance. Did I pass it? Is it? Sorry, it's F, not G, it's F. So what we have is F, 1, 2, 3, 4 points, which are not very in-depth. And I have two issues. I have one issue is that the placement of the battery energy storage system being under solar, indicating, and I think the intent was at the time that this was written, that this was a battery backup for solar systems, where maybe that first S and the BESS was solar as opposed to energy systems or storage systems. And that's why it got placed here, because it's a backup for a large scale solar plant. And that could be the case. And that is a location where battery energy storage can happen. And some could argue it's a good place for it to happen because we don't always make solar energy, and when we do and make lots of it, may not be a time that we need it. So if we could, store it in a battery and then use it when we need it, that would be a good thing. But it's not the only time and only place where battery energy storage is needed. You could just put it right on the power lines, whether it be high tension power lines or low tension power lines, or even in your home for very small systems, obviously for home backups. But that's not what this bylaw is about. So it is any type of energy system coming through our area where if we have a power outage, that we have a battery backup for energy. And just down the road, a neighbor of ours, Medway, has a system that they're putting in place, and it's not connected with any solar. It's just taking power from the grid, storing it, and then when it's needed at peak times, they take the energy from the battery storage systems and put it back into the grid so that there is more energy. And with more and more uses of electricity these days through automobiles and home heating systems being transitioned over to electric systems, more and more, as well as climate change and the need for whether it's colder or hotter days for heating and cooling, just needing more energy, especially electrical energy. That's the aspect of these battery energy storage systems. So the first thing I would like to do and suggest is that when we do the rewrite of this, that we take the battery energy storage system out of this 240 5.10, if I said that right, and make it a separate unit right after it, like a 10.5, but have it stand as a separate, and then secondarily to have it more detailed. We started a write-up of that. I took the bylaws from Medway, who has again this battery energy storage system going into place, and also from Carver, which has one that has one already in place, which is where I think Medway got their bylaw. And that's the bylaw. I'm not going to stop sharing this for now. Is the bylaw that we were looking at roughly a year and a half ago. Then I'm suggesting that we start discussing prioritizing higher and when we should be looking at this. And with that, I think Heidi has some additional information that she shared with me earlier, and maybe you want to share that now with us.
I can share it if you want, Heidi.
Sure.
I
That'd
have
be
it
great.
up. I have all the
Or if
documents.
you just want
open.
to speak to it
Yeah.
anyway, Heidi.
Yeah. So, I think there's a timeline here for BESS regulation that the state is putting forward. And so they've divided battery energy storage systems to large, which is 100 megawatt hours or greater, and small. And for the small ones, they say that the developers, so for the large ones, it's like they can get a state permit and bypass local regs. I don't have a clear understanding of it, but it seems like they're trying to like streamline that process. But for the small ones, that's where we could have some local control, is my understanding of this read. So for the small ones, developers could still seek a consolidated permit from the state or pursue local. And for the local consolidated process, the Department of Energy Resources is going to issue a common standard application, and local government is going to be in charge of the permitting process for that. So it sounds like we're going to have some very rigid guidelines, processes by what, July 1st of 2026, which
Yeah.
is about a year away. And so, Frank, I really appreciated that description of why to separate battery energy storage from solar. I completely agree with that. I hadn't sort of fully appreciated that until you just said that. However, I do think the timing is a little bit challenging because I'd hate to pour a ton of energy into a bylaw and then within a year, our hands get tied by the state.
Right, I agree, and I think that what this document that you're showing is an interim document of what happens until the state provides their full thing in July of 2026.
Yeah, right. But that's only a year away, July of 2026.
Right.
Yeah.
So if it makes sense to pull it out now, I agree that it doesn't make sense to try to get it for this year's ATM. So, but I still think there's some things we should be thinking about for our own town that we should maybe at least be writing down and looking at and trying and exploring and starting to understand. So when it happens, we're not starting from square one, that we have already started working on this. And
Yeah.
I would think that the proponent that is bringing this up and has been advocating for this would probably be the one that does that, unless anybody else wants to join in with that proponent. You know, you may want to work with me.
Oh, I was like, I thought that was you, but you got it.
Yeah, I was trying to get somebody to help me out without saying that help, that was me. Anyway, so it's funny.
So when you say work on it, you're talking about understanding what requirements we might want to put together at some point. I guess my concern is that trying to squeeze a bylaw into the next spring town meeting, which would be in, say, like April, then July comes along and
That's not what I'm talking about at all.
Okay.
No, I'm just
Just
saying
trying to
staying abreast
research.
of this,
Yeah, yeah.
seeing what's
Okay.
going on. There's a comment period if because we're a small town
Yes.
or because of some things that we have. Somebody should just be following this because it's really kind of big and kind of important. That's all I'm saying. And if somebody
Yes.
wanted to be on that with me, following along on this because it's something that they find of particular interest to them, that'd be great. I'd love to have somebody else to bounce ideas and discussions and stuff off of, but if nobody's willing to, that's fine too. I'll just kind of stay, just follow this topic. But also agree that we could put it at a lower priority than for, the spring of 2026 ATM.
Yeah, I know Chris Caney is following. I've talked to him and he wasn't aware of the comment period because it's getting information's been frustrating sometimes from the state. And it sounds like it's going to be like the ADUs. They're going to issue guidelines and that's what they're going to hope we follow. But until we see the guidelines, it's kind of hard.
Right. Okay, so I think we could move on to the next topic unless somebody else has any further discussions or comments or questions on this one. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the next one, which is rules, regs, administrative items. So hopefully what we've done at our last meeting and we'll continue to work at this is the priorities of our the work that we want to get done this year, and pretty much the advocate for that particular or the person that's going to be in charge of that particular item will report back at our meetings. Doesn't mean that that person can't work with other members or bring others to bear in helping with the work, but that would be at least be the person that's kind of leading the charge and trying to bring people together, whoever that should or needs to be, and then reporting out on any updates on that. So I think we have an advocate for this one.
Yeah, so I'm leading this effort on rules, regulations, and procedures, updating the applications, forms, and fees. I started looking at other towns and some of their checklists and forms and measures to guide an applicant. I don't really have anything to report on right now. I'm just collecting data at this point, but still actively engaged in this, and we'll hopefully be able to offer a little bit more insight when we bring this up at the next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, and Frank, one thing that came up that I do think we'll have to fit in here, we have a section 245.3, special permits in business districts. So one thing came up is when Milbourne Farm, that the trustees' reservations had purchased it, they had said, oh, we're going to be expanding the parking lot. Do we have to do a site plan review with you, or what has to be done for the town? And we actually, talked with Chris. He's like, we can't do a site plan review because they're not in a business district. And it's something that we came up with, and we're trying to say, well, we started reading it, and sure enough, the title of our section is special permits in business districts. And then they actually do talk about one part of site plan review for certain non-residential activities in a residence district, which doesn't make sense because the whole topic is this only pertains to a business district. So we have a conflict in this regulation, and we couldn't do a site plan review on this parking lot that was going in, and that also goes back to our stormwater disturbance. So I do think this is something that should come on our radar as one of maybe a housekeeping issue under our rules and regs and zoning bylaw.
And Heidi, just to clarify, when you like, if there was a ground disturbance bylaw, that would most certainly,
that would have covered it.
Is there an element that would be missing out of a groundwater disturbance bylaw that you would want covered? Like, could a groundwater disturbance bylaw could require a special permit for certain sizes or uses, right? Okay.
And right, so we might
okay.
put it in that, but it's just one of the things that we have this disconnect in our bylaws again, kind of like our farm events point to business general. It doesn't make sense because the farms are in a residential area.
Yeah.
So it may be something we have to wait for a complete zoning overhaul, but I just kind of want everyone to know it's kind of hard where there was nothing we could do.
Okay.
Okay, add it to the list.
Yeah.
That was special permits in a business district.
Yes, 245.3.
Okay. Any other items under rules, regs, administrative, or things that we want to add to our priorities and visions for the planning board's future?
Share what we have because not everyone has seen it.
Sure, that'd be great.
So we have planning and development. So, if any of the new folks on this call who may be at more meetings are interested in signing up, that includes a potential associate member. It's all volunteer work. So this is sort of the long range vision planning, right? Like what is the vision? And then the bylaws really get into the specifics and the words and the rules on the page. So they get a lot more specific in terms of what the topics are. And then rules and regulations and procedures are the process for implementing the bylaws. So that's even like one step more into the weeds. So, and then we have a whole section on streets and pedestrians, which is under DPW's purview, but just want to sort of keep in the loop with a lot of these things that are going on because they pertain to the visionary plan, master plan for the town. So, Brad, I already put your name on signs. So back up to the top here. If there's anything else that folks are interested in, we can.
You can put me in affordable housing too, but we'll, I guess maybe I should coordinate.
That makes sense. I
Okay,
think.
somebody else is on that. Oh, no. I see. Okay, there's two. I didn't see that there were two items. I only saw the implementing. Okay, good. Okay, but I'll.
Yeah, I mean, that's really tied in with the master plan.
Okay.
As well, the housing production plan. There's like a lot of related efforts that would be coordination, and that was where Addie Mae was a lot of the time and energy on housing came from Addie May. So it would be really great to have someone else with that. I know you don't have the background yet, but Addie May is available.
Yeah, I
around
had
June.
just our committee left just when we, I think, launched the Affordable Housing Trust, and so we sunsetted because of that. So
Okay. Okay.
Sounds
Yeah,
like
but
it fit right in with what you were
Yeah.
working on, and you could always touch base with Addie May as well. She's no longer on the planning board, but that doesn't mean she's not working for the town and can't help out or is not happy to answer some questions or provide direction.
super. Okay.
Right, and I did send out, there is a seminar for Affordable Housing 101. So I did send that out to everyone in case anyone wants to sign up. It was a free thing that CHAPA was putting on. And I had sent out a while back the Citizen Planner. Keep checking their websites. They have some very good trainings. And they're not very expensive, and the town will reimburse the money for the training cost of usually $35 for a course. And if I see it, if I come across others, I'll keep forwarding them.
Can you scroll down a little bit?
yes,
Okay.
yes. Absolutely.
Thank you. So what else? Updated permitting procedures manual.
So the stricken out bylaws means we just did them last cycle.
So we have nobody with the groundwater stuff. Can you kind of
Yeah, I'll
keep
put
that?
my name on that. It was sort of as it connects to stormwater for sure. That makes sense, I think.
Okay.
We decided maybe this would be 2027 pending other guidance from the state, right? The solar,
Yes.
the BESS and solars. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep scrolling down to.
So if you have any updates on anything that you want to present at our next meeting, whatever that next meeting is, please let Heidi know at least a week ahead of time. That you don't necessarily have to have all the information that you want to present, but at least let Heidi know that you want to present on something so we can make sure we add it to our agenda and therefore we could talk about it.
Yeah, I didn't realize I'd be speaking on this tonight, quite frankly, but I have been looking at other towns and how they handle this. And I think the next step for rules and regulations and forms would be to have a draft ready. And that might take a couple of weeks for me, to be
Do you
honest.
think you'd be ready for the July or for the August meeting?
I have the dates. 15th. Yeah, let's shoot for August 19th, and I can have some draft material ready for that.
Even if you only choose one or two things to start with,
Yeah.
you have to correct it all.
I know we're targeting the fall for completion of those items. That seems to fall in line with that.
All right, so if you've been sent the list, if you could look at it and start thinking about what work and what updates that you can provide, and share that with Heidi, and we'll get it put on the agenda. I'll do the same. So are we done with priorities and the plan for now? So let's talk about our next meeting dates for the summer. So we're looking at a meeting date of July the 15th, which is a Tuesday, I believe, and August the 19th, which should also be a Tuesday. Do those dates still look okay for everybody? Heidi, about for you?
Right now they do.
No other A&Rs or anything that would have to.
No, and you have to be flexible if they come in. We'll just have 21 days for an A&R, so we will try to get them timed on these dates, but nothing else I'm hearing is coming forward.
Okay. All right, so those, and we're doing those as Zoom meetings as well, just in case something happens and somebody's out of town for whatever reason, or out of the country, you can still attend. Wonderful. Okay, so those are our next dates. Put them in your calendars. It's no better place to be. July 15th and August the 19th, that would be 7 o'clock, and they would be a Zoom, not hybrid, not in person, unless something happens, and Heidi will inform us of that, right, Heidi?
Yes.
Okay. And any reports on meetings with any other boards or entities?
I think we did that in the beginning.
Yeah, I don't know if there were any others. I know that Rob
yeah.
presented, but okay. Planner report, I think
We
already spoke to that as well.
Yep.
Before we adjourn, I wonder if we could go back to the introductions piece. Anne Marie's microphone wasn't working. So if that is now working, and then no, it doesn't look like it.
We see your hand, we see your lips move, we see the light off your glasses, but so try this. If you see on the bottom left, there's a little thing that says audio with a mic, and then there's like this little triangle carrot thing to the right of that. If you click on that, you'll see the upper part says microphone, and there's sometimes 1, 2, or 3 different, or sometimes even more settings. If you just try to click through those and talk and see if one of those work. Do you see what I'm talking about?
Or just put something in the chat.
And I also thought it might be nice, just, since we're mostly done with business, if we each introduced ourselves, because they are coming into a room here with, not necessarily knowing who we are, and just do a quick intro, if that works for folks, if that's of interest.
I think that's a good idea. Would you like to start?
Me? Sure. Yeah. Okay. My name is Steph Harrison. Brett, my daughter Alina is in Rishi's class at Pine Hill. Let's see. I am by academics. I'm an environmental engineer and an urban planner. I work for Stantec, as I mentioned earlier in the meeting. I tend to do stormwater and flooding type of work, especially as it interfaces with urban spaces. Before I was elected to the board a year ago, so I moved to Sherbron in 2018, and from that time until I was elected to the board a year ago, I was the minutes clerk for the planning board, and just trying to in a new community get familiar with some of the issues and hold myself accountable to show up at the meetings and pay attention. And so I did that. So I have some observer experience with the board before the last year of being an elected member, but that's me.
Which includes a lot of great historical information and background and all that, which is really wonderful.
When I can remember it, yep. Way back
or look back at the minutes. Jim?
Right.
Yeah, I'm Jim Garino. I've been on the planning board for about a year. I'm also on the Historic District Commission and Historical Commission. I'm a licensed architect by trade. I worked on both large projects and small projects, urban and some in Sherbron, both for myself and for large companies. So right now I'm really working on commercial interiors, which is where the work is right now. So, but yeah, that's a little bit of my background.
So Jim, if you don't mind me asking, does that interior work involve any like transitioning of buildings from one use to another, like
Sure.
from business use to living use?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not involved with that, but changing uses certainly. I do both. I'm working with a lot of office fit outs right now, but changing use, fitness centers from a bit, or what else? Before that, I worked on core and shell large lab buildings, which is quite different. So trying to round out my experience with both core and shell and fit out, both commercial, interiors and the exterior of the building. So most of my experience is with core and shell office or lab buildings and educational type of projects. But
Cool. Rob?
Rob Wolf, I've been on the planning board, I think, for 4 or 5 years. Very interested, especially in open space and outdoors aspects of town planning and transportation infrastructure, walkable, bicycle, transportation too. Lived in Sherbron 32 years and 6 years in Millis before that. I'm a retired electrical engineer. And I'm on the Sherbron Forests and Trails Association board too.
That leaves me. I'm Frank Hook. I'm currently in the process of retiring from my job that I've been in for 23 years now. And I didn't get all these gray hairs just from that last job in 23 years. I was 18 years in industry before I did a mid-career change. So I was in sales and marketing of scientific instrumentation, specifically water quality instrumentation. And I'm a chemist and transitioned into teaching. So I teach high school chemistry. That my last day will be next Wednesday, the 18th. So I'm on the planning board because I want to affect the vision and the growth and the change and of our town of Sherborne, and so that it does it in a small town and aesthetically a pleasing way for all of us, so we kind of keep the character and maintain the vision and plan that those that move into our town moved into it for. I'm also on the Energy Sustainability Committee because I'm very passionate about our environment and feel as though Sherburne is doing a lot in our town to help with the environment with being a CO2 scrubber with all our trees and the greenery that we have. And I kind of like to keep some of that as well. But also all the other aspects of climate and energy and sustainability of our town. I'm on the community center board. It's probably the first thing that I was able to join when I stopped working in industry and having time to devote to my family, community, and work, which is the oldest building in town, the 1858. They also call it the townhouse, which is right next to the UUAC and across the street from the library, that old brown building, the one you see on almost any picture of Sherborne will always have a picture of the Sherborne Community Center, the 1858. Proud to have been there. I moved into town about the same time, a little bit after Rob. We moved in 1994, so that puts us at 31 years. You're 32 years, and yeah, love the town and want to keep doing things to make sure that we have a great town to continue to live in.
I didn't mention how long I was here. I've been here for 13 years, I think.
And so if you said you moved in 2018, that puts you at 7-ish.
Seven.
No, oh,
Yep.
All right, Brett, that gives you a little bit of a flavor of who we are. Thanks, Steph, for bringing that up. That's good. Okay, anything else? If not, I'll look,
Everybody
sorry.
sent a chat, which we will lose after we log out. So maybe we can take a quick look. Real estate lawyer by training, Mass Development's general counsel, Devon's. Cool.
Well, hopefully, your microphone will work the next time you just sign in, out of and back into Zoom, and then everything will work just fine. Sometimes that's all it takes with any
Yep.
luck. If not, maybe we can meet at town hall, sometime and we can play with your computer to see if we can get it to work. Okay, anything else that anybody would like to speak out about, report out on, discuss with us? Hearing none, I guess we can call this, call to, end the
Adjourn.
meeting.
Yeah.
So I have a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
I think it's been moved and seconded. Okay, with Jim Guarino,
Aye.
Brett,
Aye.
Rob Wolf,
Hi.
Steph.
Aye.
And I, Frank Hook, am an aye as well. Well, thank you for a wonderful meeting and enjoy 4th of July weekend and everything between now and our next meeting. We look forward to seeing you again.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
So,
Good night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.